Welcome, trader, to the free course on binary options. In this course, we'll cover the most basic information and finish with ready-to-use strategies that you can apply in practice. Either way, it's in this very unit number 4, that we'll be going over ready-made strategies together. Don't worry, we won't be using that kind of chaos on the chart. I'll show you 3 ready-made strategies that we'll be using. If you haven't watched Unit 1, Unit 2, and Unit 3, I strongly recommend that you do. Check them out, because that's where we went over everything. How to set up the platform, how to use technical tools, and what indicators are even for. Now we're going to put all of this into practice. I'll show you entry points, all the settings, and of course, how and what we use for each strategy. So get comfortable, and let's jump right into Unit 4. Strategy number 1, levels and the RSI indicator. Look, we can trade using regular levels just like we discussed in Unit 2, but we can actually trade much more safely and securely by using these levels. Of course, here you'll need to look for good entry points since they won't always be available or easy to spot. You'll need to find them yourself, but still, we'll have a fairly safe and reliable way to trade. Like, here I have a level, and from it I can already open a trade. So basically this whole area, let me even highlight it for you. This will be exactly our range, our level, that's all of it. We covered this in Unit 2. There you can take a closer look at what levels are, what a range is, and well, I also went over some candlesticks there. Check it out. On the price, right now we're not paying attention to the movement, we're just looking at the fact that the price has come exactly to this level. From here, we can see that the RSI value is at the bottom. Accordingly, if the RSI value is between 50 and the very bottom, right here, that's a buy signal. From here, we can enter on a bounce from the level. And I marked this lower level, price came to it and reacted accordingly. So we got this small upward impulse, which is exactly where we should be making money right now. Yeah, as you can see, we're currently making a profit of $630. And now let's figure out how this strategy actually works. That was just an example of a trade. Now we'll go over all the settings, all the entry points, so you'll be fully ready for strategy number 1. To use strategy number 1, we need to set the candles to either 15 seconds or 30 seconds. These are regular Japanese candlesticks. Not Hikanashi, remember, 15 seconds or 30. For trade duration, we'll use either 1 minute or 3 minutes. So on M1, we trade using 15-second candles, and on M3, we trade using 30-second candles for each trade. Please remember this. Look, when we open a trade, it's actually very simple. And another important point, we need to add an indicator. We go to indicators and add the RSI. RSI. Then we set it up. Set the period to 20, don't change anything in the style, and save our settings. Now, here's the most interesting part. We mark a certain level. So we've learned what a level is, that it needs at least 2 touches and ideally 3 for confirmation. For example, we've marked the level together. When do we open a trade? Also, look, we're not taking into account what the previous trend was. Uptrend, downtrend. Right now, it doesn't matter to us. We're working specifically with the level. So we see that there was a level here. And for example, the prices come to this point. How do we know if we can open a trade or not? We look at the RSI. If we're considering a buy trade then, specifically in this scenario, the RSI values should be between 50 and 0. So this whole area. If we're considering a sell trade, then our value should be from 100 accordingly, from the very top down to 50. Remember this, so the better you do your analysis, the more accurately you figure out where your RSI is, the safer your trade will be. Also, right here on the RSI, there's an expand button. Be sure to click it because it'll help you see all the movements much more clearly. So you found some level. For example, we have a pretty good level here. We're looking at the touches together. Let's break it down by the touches, how we would open trades here together. So we have touch number 1, touch number 2, and touch number 3. This is already a level for us. Here, the price makes an impulse and approaches this level. We see that the RSI is at the very bottom, which means we will have An impulse, because it indicates overbought and oversold conditions for us just the same, but in reverse with the upper levels. If we mark a level somewhere above, for example this level, then we will open sell trades. So look, here the price comes into this whole level and we open trades with you, but only when the RSI is at the top. So here we wouldn't have opened a single trade at all since the RSI was way down at the bottom. Let's look at an example like this. Here's actually a pretty good example, so we can observe. Right here we have this kind of level. I think everyone can see that we had several touches here, and all of them make it clear that this is a level. Look, here we could have opened a trade. The RSI was at the top. Here too, we could have opened a sell trade. Here as well, we could have opened a trade. And even here, we could have opened a trade. So the higher the RSI, the better our entry point for a downward move will be. So we've covered strategy number 1. Let's move on to strategy number 2. But before that, I want to remind you that in our Telegram channel, you'll find even more ready-made strategies, more indicators, and all the settings as well. So follow the link in the description, join our Telegram channel, and grab even more strategies and settings there. The link will be in the description, and now let's move on to strategy number 2. Strategy number 2. Ichimoku clouds. This strategy will include just one indicator. We'll set it up correctly, pick the right entry points, and as a result, this single indicator will really help us make over 90% profitable trades. It's really that simple. Look, we go to the indicators and select this indicator right here, Ichimoku Kinko Hyo, or as it's commonly called, Ichimoku clouds. Next, we go into the settings for this indicator and set it to 15, 30, and 60. In the style section, we change the first 2 lines to turquoise 2 pixels wide. We turn off the 3rd line. We leave the 4th line as is, but for the 5th line, or rather the cloud, we set it to red. Save the settings. Our indicator is now fully set up. By the way, take a look, it's a whole 90 points. So this is quite a safe movement. We talked about this kind of movement back in the first Unity. By the way, this trade was opened on the OTC market. We'll talk about that in Unity number 5, but just as an example, looking ahead, we can actually use this strategy, specifically strategy number 2, on the OTC market. Let's break down how everything works here. First, after we've added the indicator, we need to set up the chart. We set the Hiki to 6, candles to 15 seconds, and it is advisable to turn on the timer. We bet 1 minute on the Beal. These are the only settings we will use in this strategy. Let's figure out how to open it correctly. Transactions. If you see a movement like this, it's a perfect example. That is, when our price moves either upward or downward. So this is a trend indicator. Again, check out Unit 1 if you haven't seen it. And if the cloud is green, that means we're talking about opening buy trades. However, we won't open them immediately or right away when we simply see this cloud appear. Instead, we will only open them when the price comes exactly to touch our turquoise lines. When the price comes here, we, accordingly, open a deal with you towards the cloud. That is, the green one is responsible for the purchase, and accordingly, the red cloud is responsible for the sale. This is how this example is. Transactions. That is, we had a red cloud. Here we saw the price just came. That is, once again, I see the red cloud. I understand that I will open a sell trade. The question is where I will open it. So I wait. As soon as the price enters between these 2 lines, I open a trade from here for 1 minute and take a fairly safe, profitable move. It's exactly the same with an upward movement, just the other way around. But we will skip situations like these. Meaning, when the price is moving sideways like this, we just pass on it. So try to look for those movements that look clean and clear. For example, here is a good example of a strong movement. We have a nice downward trend, so right here we could have opened a trade. Right here and here as well. This works both in the crypto market and in the regular financial market. But you need to understand that for such a high success rate, for a solid 90% of positive trades, we pay with one downside for this strategy. That is, the number of entry points, they will be very few. For example, we had a great upward movement, but in reality, we only had about 5 entry points. And that's in just 1 hour. That's very few, but nevertheless, it's very safe. So I've shown you the settings and also how to use them. If you have any questions, write to our managers. They'll explain everything in more detail. Let's move on to strategy number 3. Strategy number 3, stochastic oscillator and moving average. This strategy will consist of 2 indicators, the stochastic oscillator and the moving average. We won't be using any technical tools, just two properly configured instruments, and we'll be making money specifically with them. The logic here is actually very simple. What we need to do is just wait patiently for a few crossovers to occur. So once all of the relevant factors finally line up together, we can then open a trade. For example, on the Euro/British pound, we can open a buy trade. But let's take a moment to break down exactly why we'll be opening buy trades if the crossover happens in the middle range. That is, specifically between the levels of 80 and 20, and also why we will be opening buy trades in those cases. We'll then proceed to open trades at the 20 level accordingly, and for sell trades, we'll open those above the 80 level, and basically just in the middle as well, following the same logic. Here, we don't open any trades. We're selling. But here, we don't open buy trades, since the stochastic at the moment is showing us oversold and overbought zones, but only with regard to who is currently dominating. So if buyers start to dominate at the moment, that's exactly what it shows us. And that's when we open a trade. After this trade, I'll show you all the entry points, all the settings, so we'll go over the strategy as well. For now, we see a decent movement, just 5 points. The market isn't very volatile, but still we make $667. Let's see how to settle this up and how to close trades as well. Here's how you configure it. It's all very simple. We add a moving average, a stochastic oscillator, then we go here to the pencil icon, set the moving average period to 15, and select the moving average type as MA. In the style settings, we don't change anything. For the stochastic oscillator, we set it to 18, 8, and 12. And accordingly, we also don't change the moving average type. We leave it as SMA. In the style settings, we just set the first two lines to 2 points each. So our setup is completely ready. As for the candles, we used 15-second candles again, Japanese candlesticks. We use it in exactly this configuration, 1 minute per trade. If you want to use, for example, much safer and more reliable entry points, then you should use 30-second candles and 2 minutes per trade. Please remember this important point. This is exactly how we work together as a team. Look, it's actually all very simple and straightforward. If you see in the moment, let's go back and break down our very first trade together. If you see in the moment that we had a crossover right here, then you tell yourself, it's simple. If the green line is currently on top, in other words, that means we'll open a buy position trade. If the red line is on top, then we'll open a sell trade. So I see that the green line is on top and we're in a normal range above 20, so we can safely open a buy trade. And third, it's confirmation. That is, the third factor is that the price must go beyond the moving average. So if all these factors line up for me, for example, here I have the green line crossing, I'm in the normal range, but the price, in order to open a buy trade, the price must be above the moving average. In other words, it should show its intention to move upward. If that's not the case, if the price is below the moving average, we don't open a trade. We wait until the price goes above the moving average. So roughly speaking, right here, I couldn't open a buy trade, but here, above the moving average, I can. It's exactly the same with a downward movement. If you see that, at the moment, we have a crossover and it matches our parameter. But the price is, for example, if it's above the moving average, we won't open a trade. If it's below the moving average, we open a sell trade. Remember, this is exactly how everything will work. So you just wait for the crossover, you watch for it, and then you check where it happens. If it matches all the conditions, for example, if there's a crossover right now and we see this kind of situation where the red line is on top and we're in the upper zone, then from here we can open sell trades. But the price won't be there. Below the moving average, it will be above the moving average. So accordingly, we won't be able to open a trade. We'll have to wait until the price crosses the moving average and then we can open a sell trade. I hope that's clear now. So accordingly, we have an entry point forming, which means we need to wait until the price drops below the moving average and then we can safely open a trade. That was the top 3 strategy that any beginner can replicate. Meanwhile, I want to remind you that on this YouTube channel as well as on our Telegram channel, you'll find even more strategies with ready-made indicators, complete instructions on how to use them, what settings to choose, and how to open trades. In general, you'll find more instructions on our Telegram channel. The link will be in the description, so join and get even more strategies. Also, if you have any questions, just write to our managers. we'll be happy to share ready-made strategies with you. In Unit 5, we'll go over what the OTC market is and how it works, since it's an essential part of binary options. See you in the next lesson. In the meantime, leave a comment about what you thought of this video and which strategy you like the most. See you soon!